How's it going, everyone? This is going to be a super straight to the point video on how to save tomato seeds. Now, first of all, you can only save seeds from open pollinated or heirloom varieties. You can save seed from hybrids, but it's not going to be the same tomato the next year. So you want to make sure that the variety you're saving seed from is either an heirloom or open pollinated. Once you've picked the variety you want to save seed, you want to pick the best plant. This is the most important step. As you can see here, I have two of the same variety growing right beside each other, and this plant here is clearly doing a bit better. The plant looks healthier overall, it's got bigger foliage, it's got better fruit set, and it's got bigger fruit. So this is the plant I'm going to want to save seed from. Now, the old tale is that you always want to pick fruit from the first fruit set on the plant, which usually ends up being the lowest cluster. Now, you don't have to do this, but the saying is that the plant puts all its important nutrients and strongest genetics into that first fruit set early in the year when the plant's getting the most sunlight and the most nutrients. Now, you don't have to do this, that's just the old saying, but in my case here, we happen to have some of the best fruit on the plant in the first fruit set. So, again, pick the healthiest plant, pick the best example of the fruit, so the best looking tomato, the biggest, whatever you prefer, as long as it's from the healthiest plant and it's not a stunted tomato that's really small, you're gonna be in good shape. Now, once we've identified the plant and the fruit, we're gonna want to leave this fruit on the plant for as long as possible. We don't want it to start rotting, but we want it to be fully ripe. Normally I'd pick tomatoes at the breaker stage when they just start turning, when they're just blushing, that way the mice and the squirrels don't get to them. But for saving seed, you want to leave the fruit on there until it's fully ripe, so you know that those seeds are fully developed and fully mature inside the tomato. These two here look perfect, ready to go, so we're going to harvest them and then that'll be the next step. Alrighty, the next step, what you will need is a jar. I like to use mason jars. You can just use a plastic cup, a knife of course, and a paper towel and an elastic. So what we're going to do first is actually cut open into the tomato, and then we're going to squeeze out all the juice and seeds into our jar. Alrighty, as you can see, we got a decent amount of seeds out of those two tomatoes, which I'm happy about. Now the next step is just going to be to add a little bit of water. You don't need to add too much, but I'm just going to go ahead here and add some water to this. So that's plenty there. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is cover it with something breathable. A coffee filter works. I like to use paper towel. Put an elastic around it there. And now we're gonna let this sit, preferably inside in a warm room, for 3 to 5 days. And at that point, you should see some white mold starting to form on the top, and you should see the seeds start sinking to the bottom. So I'll update you when we get to that point, but this is ready to ferment now. Alrighty. Well, it's been about 4.5, 5 days. As you can see, we got some mold forming on the top here, and all the seeds have sunk to the bottom. That's how you know it's ready for the next step, which is going to be to drain out all of this liquid, rinse off the seeds, and put them in a paper plate to dry. So let's go do that now. So now what we're going to do is just add some water to it. As you can see, all of our seeds are going to sink to the bottom. You can see all of our seeds are sitting there, and we'll just gently pour out the water, getting rid of all the juice and pulp and mold while keeping our seeds nice and safe at the bottom there. Alrighty, well, once you got majority of the stuff out, you can go ahead, fill up the jar again. And you don't have to do this, but I like to get a little fine strainer, and I can just go ahead and pour all the seeds into there. Still a few I missed. And then we can go ahead and just wash them very lightly. Now the final step, once you've rinsed them off, get your paper plate and just throw them on there. You can separate them a little bit. Paper plate is the best to use for this because it absorbs all the water out of them and they don't stick too bad. Now we're going to let this sit away from direct sunlight, just in a warm room for at least a week. I mean, you can do less if they dry up, but I like to leave them for at least a week, sometimes even 2 weeks, and then at that point we're ready to package them up and store them. So we got our tomato seeds now drying off on this paper plate. We're going to let them sit for about a week, maybe a little longer, then we'll put them away into final storage. I just like to use the little coin envelopes, little paper envelopes. Those work well to store them, and then I'll put them in an airtight jar and store them in a cool, dark place like my basement. And yeah, these should last for years to come. So hopefully this was pretty straightforward and to the point. This is one of the most popular methods to save tomato seed, my favorite method. And yeah, hopefully we have a great year next year with these seeds. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.